All right, so today we're going to go over solving multi-step equations. So we're going to combine the two things we did yesterday, and they're going to get pretty progressively hard. This should all be review. Okay, so our objectives are going to be to solve equations involving more than one operation, solve equations with a variable on each side, and solve equations with like terms on both sides. When solving, and you'll want to pause this to copy it down, you'll need to distribute first. So anytime there's parentheses, you've got to distribute. Then you're going to move the smaller variable across the equal sign by adding and subtracting. And then you're going to go ahead and multiply and divide. We're always going to move the smaller variable. It wouldn't be wrong if you move the larger variable, but usually it just gives you some negatives, and you want to avoid the negatives because it just gives you more chance of making mistakes and losing something. Okay? So this problem, I kind of trick you right off the bat with the first problem. Now, normally you add and subtract first, multiply and divide later. That's what the last page said. However, you cannot add that 9. That 9 is attached to that a by subtraction. You cannot add it because it is trapped by that 2. It is part of the numerator. And you have to get rid of the denominator completely before you can have access to that 9. So on this particular equation, you're actually going to multiply by 2 on both sides. Now on the left side here, the 2's will cancel each other out. One's on the top and one's on the bottom. And you'll get a minus 9 equal to 12. And now it's just a simple one-step equation just like we had yesterday. So a is attached to the 9 by subtraction. We're going to add 9 to both sides. And a is going to equal 21. All right, this one over here, that minus 9, that's not trapped. That's not part of the numerator at all. Okay, it's not trapped by the 12. It's completely separate. In this case, and in most cases, you will add and subtract first and multiply and divide second. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Okay, bring down my s over 12. My negative 9 and positive 9 will zero out or cancel. Negative 11 plus 9 is negative 2. Again, it's now down to a single one-step equation just like we did yesterday. So we have that s, it's divided by 12. To get rid of it, we're going to multiply by 12. So we multiply this side by 12, multiply this side by 12. Now I have a 12 on the top and a 12 on the bottom that are going to cancel completely. You end up with an s, and negative 2 times 12 is going to be negative 24. Do not lose those negatives. You will be marked completely off on Canvas if you forget your negatives. All right, going on to this equation, we're following the same MO. Add and subtract first, multiply and divide second. So we're going to add the 13 to both sides. The negative 13 and positive 13 will cancel. You'll bring down the 5q. You'll add the 37 and 13, gives you 50. Okay. Now a single one-step equation again. You're going to go ahead and divide by 5 to get q by itself. These 5's will cancel. You'll end up with q. And 50 divided by 5 is 10. All right. Next one here. Same thing. Just practicing, repetition. It helps. Go through and just listen to all these. Trying to guess what I'm doing next. And then take the time to pause it and write everything down. Okay? So I have 1/2 p minus 10 equals 125. Add and subtract away from the p first. Well, the 10 is subtracted. That's where we're going to move first. We're going to do the opposite and add 10. Okay. We end up with 1/2 p equals 135. All right. Yesterday we learned if we have a fraction with a variable, it's multiplied. So to unmultiply, you divide it. But you got to remember, how do I divide a fraction? You multiply by the reciprocal. In this case, the reciprocal of 1/2 is a whole number. It's 2. So we're going to multiply by 2, so those cancel out, and we get 1p or p. To keep everything equal, we're going to multiply this side by 2, and we end up with 270. All right, they're going to keep getting progressively harder. Let's look. Next one. Okay. Now we have two variables. Remember, going back to those notes, it said we move the smallest variable first. So here we have a 5s. Here we have a 7s, and we need to move the smallest one. So the smallest one's going to be that 5s. It's added. Right here you have an adding. So we're going to subtract 5s to zero it out. Make sure you're subtracting from the like terms. You would want to subtract this 5x from the 2 here, okay, because they're not like terms. You can't do that. All right, we're going to bring down the 8. The plus 5s and minus 5s are going to cancel. We have 7s minus 5s, which is 2s, and we're going to bring down the negative 2 that we didn't touch. Now it looks like a problem from that last slide. All of our variables now on the right. We have no more variables to worry about. And since our variables have taken up residency on the right side, we're going to take the constant, the negative 2, and we're going to move it to the other side. So it's subtracting 2. So we're going to add to zero it out. Okay, 8 plus 2 is 10. Bring down the 2s. The negative 2 and positive 2 will cancel out. And again, another one-step equation. All right, that 2 is multiplied to the s. So to unmultiply it, or to get the s alone, we divide. So s equals 5. And the next one's the same thing. We just added one more step from the last side. You're going to move your smaller variable. That happens to be the 3f. It's positive, so we're going to subtract the 3f from both sides. 9f minus 3f is 6f. We're going to bring down the minus 6. We're going to bring down the equals. The positive 3f and negative 3f are going to cancel, and we're going to get 7. On the last problem, our variables took over the right side. On this problem, our variables have taken over the left side. So we're going to leave all of our variables on the left, and we're going to take that negative 6, that constant, and we're going to move it to the right side. So I'm going to add 6 here, add 6. Okay, 6f equals the negative 6 and positive 6 will cancel. 13. All right, to get f alone, we are going to divide by 6. So divide here by 6 and here by 6. Do not get out a calculator. Type in 13 divided by 6 and give me a decimal. Remember, if there's no decimals in the problem, you can't put a decimal in the answer. So we go through and we cancel our 6's and get f's, and we think to ourselves, how many times will 6 go into 13 evenly without going over? 2. Okay, so we put a 2. That leaves us a remainder of 1, so we're going to have 1 over our denominator of 6. Remember, the denominator never changes. All right. We're going to practice now with words, and then we're going to go a little bit harder. We're adding our parentheses for our distribution. All right, 3/4 of 7. So that you guys know, and you'll definitely want to write this down, of, here is a multiplication problem. So 3/4 of 7 subtracted from a number. All right. We're going to multiply 3/4 by 7 subtracted from a number. So how do we show that 7 subtracted from a number is our one quantity? Okay, we put that in parentheses. So in parentheses, 7 subtracted from a number. That subtracted from works the same way as than. That's going to reverse order also. So actually, first we write n, and then minus 7. So 7 here subtracted from the n which we put first. Is going to be our equal sign here, and negative 15. And we got to find the answer now. Okay? We have parentheses. We have to distribute. You should all know how to distribute. We should all know how to work with fractions. Okay? So we're going to take the 3/4 and we're going to distribute it to the n, and we're also going to distribute it to the 7. So we have 3/4 times n is just going to be 3/4 n. 3/4 times negative 7 is going to be minus 21 over 4 equals negative 15. Now when you have multiple fractions like this and you're going to have to find so many common denominators and add and subtract, your best bet is to just get rid of the fractions. And the way we do that is we're going to multiply everything by the least common denominator. Well, the least common denominator in this case is 4 because we put 15 over 1. So what do 4 and 1 all go into? 4. So you're going to take and you're going to multiply this by 4. You're going to multiply this by 4. And you're going to multiply this by 4. And that gets rid of all your fractions in one step, so you just don't have to worry about those. Okay? Because once you get higher than a one-step equation, it's just so much work to deal with only fractions. Okay, so here our 4 on top and 4 on bottom will cancel and we'll end with 3n. Same with the second term. Our 4 on top and 4 on bottom will cancel. We'll end up with negative 21. Equal to negative 15 times 4 is going to be negative 60. And now you have no more fractions. Now you have just a two-step problem just like the first ones we practiced today. Okay? So we're adding and subtracting first, multiplying and dividing second. So we're going to add 21 since it's subtracted. So we're going to still do the opposite. So add 21, add 21. 3n is going to equal. Now you have different signs here, so we're going to subtract. We get 39. Okay, and our highest number is negative, so we get negative 39. Go through and divide by the 3 to get n by itself. The 3's cancel. N equals negative 39 divided by 3 is negative 13. All right, so that was our practice with distributing, practice with parentheses. Okay, now we're going to practice one that has two sets of parentheses. All righty, so we're going to distribute the 4. 4 times t is 4t. Distribute the 4. 4 times 20 is plus 80. All right, this one, we're going to want to distribute, but we can cross cancel on this one. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 24 times. So we end up with just 1 times 4 on top. So we just end up with 4t. All right, I'm going to get a different color to do the other one. So now I'm going to distribute the 1/5 times the 400. All right, I'm going to cross cancel the same way. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 480. So that cancels out on the bottom again, so I just have 1 times 80, which is plus 80. All right. Something's different about this problem here. Our sides are equal. This is called an identity. It means that no matter what number I put in for t, it's always going to equal. All right? If you didn't notice in this step, you could take it one step further. You're looking at this equation and you're like, all right, I got to subtract my smaller variable. But they're both the same. So you go through and you subtract 4t from this side and subtract 4t from this side, and you get 80 equals 80. You would stop right there and you would say identity. And your answer is all real numbers. All right, there's a different scenario. What if you subtracted and you got 80 equals 60? Well, 80 doesn't equal 60. That's not possible. Okay? So if you got something like 80 equals 60 after your variables disappeared, there's actually no solution to this. It means it can never be solved. And you'll just write no solution. So again, this is the answer. This is a completely different problem. Just showing you that if your variables were to cancel and you got unequal terms, your answer would be no solution, because that special case will come up also. All right, let's keep going. Same thing, 2 sets of parentheses. We're just going to watch our fractions. 1/3 times 18, 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 18, 6. So everything goes to 1s except the 6. I'm going to use a different color now. 1/3 times 12, 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 12, 4. So the fraction in front goes to 1s again, cancels out. So it's going to be plus 4q. All right, distributing over here, 6 times 2q is 12q. Minus 6 times 7 is 42. And we're back to just doing the same thing, okay? 2-step, 3-step actually. You're going to subtract the smaller variable. So we're going to subtract 4q from both sides because it's smaller than 12q. And it was added, so that's why we're subtracting it. We're going to bring down the 6. This positive and negative 4q cancel, it's gone. Equals 12q minus 4q is 8q minus 42. All right. You're going to add 42 to both sides. Now the q's took over the right-hand side. 6 plus 42 is 48, equal to 8q. We have one step to get the q by itself. It's attached to the 8 by multiplication, so we're going to unattach it by dividing. So divide by 8, q equals 6. Now, right here it says check your solution. The way you do that is if q equals 6, you would come here and you would take this 6 and you'd go back to your original equation and you'd plug it in for that q. And then you'd plug 6 in for that q. And if you plug 6 in and you solve each side and they're equal, then you found the right solution. You found the answer that makes the right side equal to the left side, which is what we're solving for. All right. Moving on. 6 times 3r is 18r. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. We can cross cancel this one, but not everything is going to go away. Okay? The most that will go into 8 and 46 is 2. So 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 goes into 46 23. So we're left with a fraction. We're left with 3 times 23, which is 69 over 4r. All right, and then we distribute the last one. And this one, 8 goes into 8 ones, 8 goes into 8 ones, so we just get plus 3. It's kind of a pain that we have that 4 there. Okay? I would just go ahead and deal with it with fractions. You could multiply everything by 4 to get rid of your denominator. All right, but then it's going to make your number so high it's not even worth it. So what I would do is subtract the smaller r. So you're going to subtract 69 over 4r. Subtract 69 over 4r. And you actually got to come to the side and put 18 over 1. Subtract that from 69 over 4. Your common denominator is going to be a 4. So this is going to stay 69 over 4. And if we put 18 over 1 and we multiplied 1 by 4 to get 4, then we multiply 18 by 4 and we get 72. All right, so 72 minus 69 is 3. So this entire thing here equals 3/4 r. And it wasn't that bad. We only had to change 1. Okay? Minus 24 equals 3. All right, you're going to keep solving. Your variables are on the left-hand side now. You're going to want to move your constant, the 24, to the right. So you're going to add 24 because it's subtracted. We always do the opposite. All right, we get 3/4 r equals 27. All right, we have a fraction, yes. With our variable, we have to deal with fractions again, but it's not that hard. We're going to multiply the reciprocal, which we learned yesterday. So the reciprocal of 3 over 4 is going to be 4 over 3. So we're going to multiply by 4 over 3 here, 4 over 3 here. The 4's cancel, the 3's cancel, you end up with r. This one, the 3 cancels also. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 27 9, so you end up with just 9 times 4, so r equals 36. So it actually does come down and equal all the way to a whole number. Again, pause this, write this all down. All right, another word problem, okay? Some of our word problems aren't just going to be super specific. We got to set it up. So here we have 2 triangles, and we're going to find the value of h so that the figures have the same area. All right, so you got to know the area of a triangle. For those of you who don't, it's 1/2 the base times the height. So I'm going to look at my first triangle. Okay, it's 1/2. My base here is 6, so times 6. My height is h. I don't know it. I'm just going to put h. And that area's got to be equal to my other triangle, which I'm going to use the formula again, 1/2 base. In this case, my base is 10 times the height. And this here represents the height. That's h minus 2. So I'm just going to put h minus 2 in parentheses. Notice it's capitalized here. It's capitalized here. I keep the h capitalized in the problem. It's really important that you guys keep the same case. Okay? I'm going to simplify up this multiplication. Half of 6 here is 3, so it's going to be 3h. And half of 10 here is 5, so it's going to be 5 times h minus 2. There's those parentheses again. We got to distribute. So nothing changes with our 3h right now. But we're going to distribute the 5. So 5 times h is 5h. And 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Now I know I teach you to always move the smaller variable, but in this case it was 0 out the left-hand side, and we can't 0. So we're going to end up having to move our biggest one, and we're going to have to deal with having a negative there and make sure we don't forget about it. So we're going to move our smallest variable to 5h. See how we got a negative 2h, and we haven't gotten a negative with the variable in the past. The 5h and negative 5h cancel, and it equals negative 10. All right, and to get h alone, we divide by negative 2. H equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive 5. So we've determined that our height is 5. When you are working on word problems, you have to go back and you have to make sure, did it ask for height? Okay. What if it asked for area? Sometimes you get done solving these big word problems and you do so much work right, but then your answer is wrong because you don't go back and read the problem. So I'm going to go back. It says find the value of h so that the figures have the same area. We found the value of h. That's our answer, 5. But if it would have said find the area, find the value of h that makes the areas are the same and give that area, you would have been wrong. So make sure you always go back through and you read the word problems. All right? And that's it for today then. We're just going to get out our homework and we're going to get started on our Canvas.